I was starting to get into the head of Travis Bickle in that scene, which is exactly what Scorsese's trying to do.
Right.
And it is f***ing scary. It's just not a place you want to live. On the return of Movie HighLow, we're talking 44 Magnums, God's Lonely Man, and driving records as clean as my conscience. One of these days, we're gonna get organ-iz-ized. This is Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver. What a week it's been.
Yeah.
It's been like one of those weeks that feels like it's been like 6 years.
Yeah, almost.
Isn't it weird?
It's strange how that happened.
I feel bad. Our two listeners, they must have felt like mom and dad went out to go get cigarettes and like never came home. Well, what a movie to be coming back on.
A classic.
Right?
The Martin Scorsese classic.
We're back, Movie HighLow. We're a little bit older, a little bit wiser. We're doing the thing.
Yeah.
And we're coming back on a movie that is actually 50 years old this year.
50 years old, but oddly feels like there's some issues that still translate today.
Yeah, that's the thing about timeless filmmaking, is that you make a movie and 50 years later, it actually feels more relevant than it ever was, which is kind of scary in a lot of ways. So this week's movie is Taxi Driver, directed by Martin Scorsese, released on February 9th, 1976. This is a high episode, says who. The brain-trusted IMDb currently rates it at an 8.2, which puts it at the 139th top movie on the website. The consensus at Rotten Tomatoes has it scored at 89%. The experts at Letterboxd give it a 4.1 out of 5. The movie was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Leading Actor, Robert De Niro, Best Supporting Actress, Jodie Foster, and Best Original Score, Bernard Herrmann. No wins and no Scorsese, which we're going to talk a lot about that at some point.
Wow, it was nominated for all those. None of them won, and Scorsese wasn't even nominated for
Scorsese
director.
wasn't even nominated for director.
Snubbed from the very beginning.
Eating shit for so long, didn't get it till The Departed. It's insane the amount of movies he should have gotten it for. He should have gotten it for this. In my opinion, he should have won for this, but at least a nomination. But let's walk before we run. For anyone who has not seen the film, can you read the synopsis?
Sure. Insomniac Vietnam veteran Travis Bickle haunts the neon-soaked avenues of a decaying New York City, driving his cab through the filth, violence, and moral rot that he believes the world around him has learned to ignore. As his alienation deepens, Travis becomes fixated on 2 women from opposite ends of the city. Betsy, a political campaign worker who seems to represent purity and hope, and Iris, a child prostitute trapped in a world of exploitation. But as Travis's loneliness curdles into obsession, paranoia, and violent delusion, he begins to imagine himself as the one man willing to stand up to the mean streets that surround him. Will Travis become the savior he pictures in his own mind, or just another lost soul swallowed whole by the sickness of the city?
I know we just rewatched this. Do you remember the first time you saw this movie and what you thought of it?
It's probably with you. No, I mean, I don't remember any specific details, unfortunately, but I mean, I do remember it being good.
Okay, so I have a weird relationship to this movie because I remember seeing this very young. I was probably like 16 years old, budding cinephile. Like, this is at that stage when I was like trying to see all the things I was told were important. I also think that most great movies, things that are this elevated, you can't really absorb it all in a first watch. It's almost like you have to watch it once just to have seen it. And then it's not until you see it a second time that you can really understand what is firing, what is working. And that was my experience. I remember seeing it the first time thinking like, you know, it was all right. And then maybe a year later rewatching it, and that was when it hit me. This is undeniably one of the most amazing movies ever made. I always feel like good films provide an answer, great films ask a question. And that's why a movie like this demands a rewatch, a reevaluation. You don't really see its brilliance until the second time you watch it.
There's a lot of things about this movie, not even just the ending of it, but just throughout it, that are kind of left up to interpretation a little bit too.
Scorsese has always been a subjective filmmaker, and that's part of what gives him his power. Nothing, I think, really should be looked at as literal. Even the things that are being presented at face value, there's stuff underneath it. There's stuff in the basement. But I mean, 50 years later, it's like loneliness, male isolation, media myth-making, misreading anti-heroes. The list goes on and on and on as to the things that still are so prescient about this
like
movie.
The incel epidemic in this country.
Yeah, well,
in the world, ultimately.
Yeah, Taxi Driver is one of the greatest movies ever made because it makes a deeply disturbed human being into someone who's terrifying but is presented as a human. And that's important. So if we're going to jump into the highs, I think the first place to start is probably the first thing that hits you the minute the movie starts. And I think the first high is definitely Bernard Herrmann's incredible score.
Absolutely. And his use of motifs and the brass section, it's very a unique score that the melodies stick with you, the little melody lines stick with you, those little motifs.
You obviously know a lot more about music than I do. What exactly is he doing that's making it so effective?
I mean, I think overall, when you think about the tones and colors of the movie, it's definitely a noir movie. And I think the style of music that Bernard Herrmann wrote for this is very fitting of that. It feels like that 1940s noir, and the dame comes into the private eye's office looking for the man who killed her husband. Like it just evokes that imagery, that nuance.
It oscillates between classy and scary. Sometimes
Right.
you feel like
I
you're
know
watching a
because
horror
there's
film.
parts of it that there's a lot of dissonance and it sounds more unsettled. And then the part of the score I'm talking about, the part it opens on, it feels more lightweight. It feels more like this is just every day, and this is
A guy in his cab driving through the city.
It probably reflects a little bit about Travis Bickle's personality and his demeanor too. Like there's moments where he's very confident, and he probably could have bagged himself Betsy, the Betsy
We gotta
character.
talk. We have to talk ad nauseam
But then
about
there's
that.
other parts of the music that just tap into how mentally disturbed he is, and you hear it reflected through the music.
And he's doing that thing with the because I feel like when it's doing that motif that you're talking about, that bum, 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 that's when I feel like I'm watching a sitcom. That's when I feel like I'm watching Moonlighting, or I'm watching something that's just
Taxi.
that's just Taxi, just something that's just kind of light and kind of airy, and then it will do that boom, 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 and it will start like those drums will come in, and all of a sudden it's like you're
And then you hear the
watching a
dissonant
horror movie. Yeah. And the way that it moves between those two tones.
But I think those are the tones of Travis Bickle too.
Right.
I'm saying it reflects kind of his own personality and what's going on in his head.
Obviously, you want to talk a lot about Scorsese, and there's a lot of things to say about Scorsese, but you have to acknowledge as a high Paul Schrader's script. I think, in creating the character of Travis Bickle, this guy personified loneliness. The journal entries, if you were seeing this movie for the first time in 2026, I think it's very easy to kind of dismiss the journal entries as a device for voiceover that, you've seen a million times at this point. But I think it's so effectively used in this movie as a window into Travis's mind. It doesn't ever feel like the voiceover is cheating or cutting corners.
Right, because the things he's saying in his journal entries are things he's saying in his everyday life to other people.
Because he's not saying anything in his everyday life. He's so isolated.
Like you said, it's insight into his psyche.
Otherwise, you would never, so much of the movie would be a silent film, and that could be effective too, but it's almost like understanding the level of what's going on in his head.
Well, right, exactly. Like his vitriol for the city reminds me a lot of, when you hear his diatribe, it reminds me a lot of In 25th Hour with Edward Norton, which I know came later, but like his whole thing about the city being this filthy cesspit, and all the colorful ways he describes the different sections and people in them, and like maybe a little, obviously less racist, but still not having a lot of reverence for the city and just a lot of disgust for it.
Even some of the things where, like, when he's writing the card to his parents, and he's like, "I hope neither of you are dead. I'll be coming home soon. I can't tell you where I am because I work for the government." And you're completely understanding that this guy has severed all ties with everything. This is a man completely in his own country. Like he is all by himself. And it's like, for you to get that kind of insight into that character, to do it in that way.
Well, I like the line where he's like, Father's Day and the birthday and all that. He's like, hopefully this will cover all of them.
And just the dialogue, there's some great lines I just noted. I love the line that is said early on that's kind of the key that unlocks the whole thing about Travis Bickle, when he's like, "My life, all it needed was a sense of someplace to go." And it's like, from very early in the movie that that's going to be the central problem of this character, is that he is so without a sense of gravity. Like there's nothing tethering him to the earth. This guy is going to float away, and the first thing that catches him is going to control him. It's just, poetically written, the way that Schrader writes it. When he first sees Betsy, the line where he's like, "She appeared like an angel out of this filthy mass. They cannot touch her. They, period, cannot."
Single word sentences.
This is jumping ahead, but just the one line that cracks me up is when everything kind of falls apart with Betsy, when he has the line, "Cold and distant, many people are, women for sure, like a union." Schrader wrote the script for Bringing Out the Dead. And Bringing Out the Dead, in my opinion, is maybe one of Scorsese's most
Underrated.
overlooked and underrated movies. Bringing Out the Dead is almost kind of
And
like a
it's I know, companion
perfect
piece, right?
companion.
Yeah.
Like you can
We
do a
had talked
double
about that
feature
before.
of Taxi Driver and Bringing Out the Dead, and it feels like it's almost like a continuation.
Capturing the energy of the city. And
that was what
madness that goes along
Scorsese
with
said
it.
was he was like, the reason I needed Schrader to because that was a book that he adapted. He's like, I needed Schrader to do the adaptation because nobody writes New York City at nighttime like Paul Schrader.
Like, he just captures the essence so perfectly.
If we're gonna uncork this, I think the biggest high of the movie is Scorsese's brilliant direction. You can look at all of the work that he had done up to this point. Mean Streets is the immediate thing that people point at as like, okay, this is a guy we need to watch. But in my opinion, you look at this movie and it's like, this is when he's firing on all cylinders and is proving himself as one of the most important voices in filmmaking, in my opinion.
And it feels so authentically him too. Like, this movie, I would like to think, and I would imagine, that Martin Scorsese doesn't necessarily relate to the disgust and disdain that I keep wanting to call him Patrick Bateman, that Travis Bickle had for the city. I know. I don't know why I keep wanting to say New York. I don't know. They're not really, they are and they aren't. But I would think that he doesn't feel the same way towards the city that Travis Bickle does, but he understands it on some level. And it also, this style of movie, the frenetic energy, all that, the superimposing of shots and stuff, like, stylistically, it captures what his style, Martin Scorsese's filmmaking style, would ultimately kind of come to be.
You can't look at his career and not just see that this guy he's a Catholic. It's the Catholic guilt. New York City is Sodom and Gomorrah. It's something that you see in everything that he does, but it's so apparent in this. I like one of the early shots in the movie, you see his first drive through the city, and as he's bringing the cab back to the cab stand, there's a shot where these kids have the fire hydrants open, and the cab drives through the fire hydrants, and it's the shot of you're seeing all the water hitting the cab as if it's cleansing it.
Yeah, I do remember that shot. I wasn't putting all that together, but that does make a lot of sense.
Just this imagery that Scorsese, this idea of having to be cleansed, having to, and it's like
ritualistically,
he can't help himself. You know what I mean? That Catholic guilt, like, it just bleeds into all of the work that he's done, but especially with Travis in New York City. The other shot I wrote down is just, again, early in the movie when he goes to the diner and he's with all the other cabbies and you meet Wizard for the first time. And there's the shot where he dumps the Alka-Seltzer into this fizzling water and the camera's hanging on it and lingering.
Almost like something's bubbling under his surface.
It's like the
something's
time bomb in his head, that's ready to go off. Scorsese's always trying to use the camera and the imagery to put you into the mindset of the character. My favorite shot is when Travis is sitting in his apartment. It's like, I think this is later in the movie, but he's got his foot on the little TV set that he has.
Right.
And he's just kind of inching it and pushing it and pushing it. And then eventually it falls over and breaks.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect visual representation of his psyche.
I hate to reference another one of his movies, but I do know what you're saying, because I'm seeing it with, like, as an example, the Henry Hill character in Goodfellas, where it's like he's all f***ed up and he's paranoid as shit that the cops are coming after him, and all the snap zooms of looking up at the helicopters, and, like, it captures that paranoid feeling in the imagery that's happening, in the way he's executing the shots.
Scorsese is always trying to make the camera a character in the movie.
Right. Yeah, even the scene where he's on the phone, it's like just dolling the camera away. It becomes painful to watch. It becomes painful for us to watch. Hence, the camera, almost as if a person was watching and couldn't watch anymore because it's too painful to watch.
The scene where Travis buys the guns in the hotel.
From Andy Samberg's dad.
Yeah, that.
Because he looks like him.
He really does, doesn't he?
I was saying Pete Davidson, but I'm like, no, he looks like Andy Samberg.
That character is so slimy and so gross. Oh, isn't that a little honey when he's got like that?
I know. That line's so creepy.
Isn't that a little honey?
He's got all the different guns. And there's the one shot where Travis picks up one of the guns. The camera is shooting down Travis's arm while he's holding the gun. And he's just kind of aiming it and slowly moving it out the window, and the camera's tracking with it. And it just kind of lands on these two people in the park who are having a conversation. It's a very subtle shot, but it's so frightening to me. Just the idea of this guy is just ready to point this gun at someone. And it almost doesn't matter who. I was starting to get into the head of Travis Bickle in that scene, which is exactly what Scorsese's trying to do.
Right.
And it is f***ing scary. It's just not a place you want to live. And then, oh man, this is one of my favorite shots. This was one of the things that I remember walking away from the movie being like, even on my first watch of it, being like, wow, is when they do the reveal of Travis with the mohawk. Or the camera's kind of panning through the crowd of people at the Palatine speaking event, and it lands on Travis's hands and he's dumping out pills into his hands. It's this slow burn of getting to that moment and then the immediate camera move that reveals that he's completely transformed. It's
But
very
also,
frightening.
probably to disguise himself a little bit because he'd been at one of these rallies in a scene prior where he's talking to the Secret Service agent. The fact that when the scene happens, when he actually is trying to make an assassination attempt, that's the same Secret Service agent that ultimately stops him. He's the one that catches it.
I think the next, maybe one of the most obvious other highs of this movie is Robert De Niro's performance as Travis Bickle. I think the most important thing that he's doing in the movie is Travis is and should be a scary character. But I think what De Niro does so effectively is humanize him in a way that made me at least kind of feel genuinely sorry for him. And there's no scene that I feel more sorry for him than his failed attempt at a date with Betsy. What was your take on that scene?
I mean, I thought it was a bad move, but it's just telling of how naive he is. He didn't realize how this would scare away a good-natured female, or somebody from a good background.
Yes.
She's not a seedy person. There's probably some females that wouldn't care, but that she's classier than that.
But see, naive is the best way to put it, because that's the thing. The reason I feel bad for him is that he establishes pretty early on, when he summons the courage to go and talk to her. There's maybe 2 or 3 scenes in the movie where he has the right impulse, and that moment is actually the right impulse.
Right, and you can tell she likes it because she
does
likes
like
the
it.
confidence.
She does like it.
Right.
And he he takes the time to come in and
And
say,
you just
like,
see Albert Brooks
oh, man,
pacing around.
Yeah, just like a vulture. Just what is happening here? But he summons the courage to go in and talk to her, ask her for a date, do it in the best way possible. She's making him wait, but she's clearly very curious about him and maybe finds him handsome, or maybe like is flattered by the attempt, even if he's fumbling a little bit. The fact that he's able to walk in there, stand up
He's
straight,
demonstrating
and
confidence.
ask her, like, will you come have coffee with me? Let's go have a piece of pie. Like, come on. And she goes and she has this little, date with him where they have pie and they have a conversation together. And she mentions this Chris Christopherson record. And he says, like, I don't know much about music. When she's talking to him about, do you want to canvas for Palatine? He's like, well, I don't know much about politics. When he f***s it up at the movie theater, he's like, I don't really know much about movies.
He doesn't really know much about women.
He doesn't know much about anything. He's this empty shell of a human being that, like what you're saying, Betsy is clearly a nice girl who, if he had done it correctly, it's like, Travis isn't the kind of guy to look up in the news. I looked up in the newspaper, there's this interesting French film playing in the village. Let's go see that, and then we'll go to a nice French restaurant. Like, he doesn't have that
Sure,
kind of...
already knows.
To him, he's like, the only thing I know about movies are the porno theaters that I go and sit in. And when he says to her, like, this one's not so bad, it's actually pretty nice, and they're all different types of couples who come to this type of movie. She's 100% right, and immediately, like, she doesn't sit down for more than 10 seconds. She's like up out of that seat and is like, all right, red flag,
very
I'm out of
uncomfortable.
here. I gotta go.
Supremely uncomfortable.
And she has every right to do that.
Squirming in her seat.
She has every right to, but I genuinely feel bad for him, because I honestly don't think that his intent was to offend her in the way
Right,
that
I
he
don't
did,
either.
which is what makes it sad. And the funniest thing about that scene is the way it closes out, when he's still trying to give her the record. He's still trying to give her the Chris Christopherson record.
She's like, I got 2 copies.
She's like, oh, I have it. And he's like, which to me is so funny, because it would be the equivalent of, like, in 1995, if you took a girl on a date and were like trying to give her the Batman Forever soundtrack, and she's just like, dude, that has Kiss from a Rose on it. Everyone in America has that album. Like, you don't have to give me this. I got it already. He started so great. He went into the office. He had the backbone to talk to her. He took her out for a coffee. If he had just done it right, 1 or 2 more dinners, he might have had a girlfriend. I especially feel like I saw this very clearly on this rewatch that we just did, is that the movie is really cleanly cut in 2 halves. Because the first half of the movie is really about his fixation on Betsy. And then the second half of the movie really becomes about his fixation on Iris. And this might be a perfect place for us to take a break.
Yeah.
Come back, do a few more highs, and then any lows if there are.
See you in a bit.
Look, won't you take the record?
I've already got it.
But please, I bought it for you, Betsy.
It's no good, too. Let's go.
Can I call you? Jesus Christ, I got a taxi, huh?
Welcome back to Movie HighLow. This is Dee, taking charge for once.
Hey, there you go. Other big highs in the movie. I think uniformly across the board, incredible supporting cast.
Of course.
2
You know the best
hours.
guy, you know the unsung hero of the movie? I'd kill you. I'd kill you. The guy with his fingers blown off and is somehow like weirdly got this surge of energy, like with his half his hand blown off.
Yeah, that scene. Well, we're going to talk a lot about that.
That
scene.
the whole Roger Corman horror show.
Yeah.
I'll kill you! I'll kill you! I'll kill you! I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
What do you think about Albert Brooks in this movie?
I think he's hilarious. Well, it's funny because I didn't notice right. I was like, that looks like Albert Brooks. You're like, it is Albert Brooks. And I like the scene that happens early on where he's on the phone with somebody talking about the pins, and it's supposed to say,
We
like,
are the people.
right, there's an underline on a specific word, and the wrong word is underlined, hence giving the wrong inflection. You know,
I think we are the people versus we
are the people. Right? It was like, well, we will not be paying. Like his whole condescending response.
We don't pay for the buttons. We throw the buttons away, all right?
Sybil Shepherd, I think she's incredible in this role.
I said she gives me Alicia Silverstone vibes, but also Alicia Silverstone meets Elle Fanning or whatever.
Yeah, she does have both those vibes, huh? She personifies kind of like the dream woman or the angel that Travis is searching for. Really believable in the way that she's kind of, again, first curious about him and then kind of flattered by him. And then she pivots kind of perfectly when she realizes that there's something very wrong with him. Not necessarily a supporting character, but Scorsese does have a scene in the movie that's
Right.
pretty memorable. And
I told you that song "Hey Joe" from Jimi Hendrix always comes to mind because that's exactly what that song is about.
the way he plays it is so terrifying. But the amount of people, the different types of people that Travis would have in his cab, that's just a vignette. That's just another night for him.
I mean, that scene too. It's almost like he's meeting somebody more psychologically disturbed than him. He's looking back like, "Are you alright?"
If you're freaking this guy out, like, come on
Yeah.
now. Peter Boyle as Wizard, very believable cabbie. I love the scene that he's first introduced where he's kind of holding court. You could tell that he's like the elder statesman and he's the one that kind of holds court with all
You
the
know,
other
you
cabbies.
work the job and then you just become the job.
That scene is really upsetting because he is looked at as kind of like the mother hen of that entire group. And for whatever reason, at that point in the movie, Travis feels like he can confide in him or try to seek advice from somebody. God bless him. Like, Peter Boyle's doing his best to try and give him some kind of advice. Travis's whole reaction to it is like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my entire life. And Peter Boyle is even looking at him like, I don't even know what the f you're talking about, dude. He can suss out immediately that there's something very, very strange about you. We're all normal guys to a certain degree. You're the one who's the outlier of this group. All right, Jodie Foster. Let's talk about Jodie Foster.
And great casting, child acting. I mean, oftentimes I'm disappointed in a lot of child acting performances, but hers is really good, really spot on. She definitely does seem wise beyond her years.
She's definitely wise.
She looks the part, but she acts like somebody you would believe grew up with a tough upbringing, that like this Mae West vibe or something, you know?
She's so good in the movie, but it's such an upsetting performance to look at because she does such an effective job of imitating a woman. The scenes where, you know, she's trying to make it with Travis, she's trying to unbuckle his belt. It's very like disturbing to watch, especially thinking that she's supposed to be a 12-year-old girl in the movie. And then just behaving like a child, like when they're in the diner together and she's got the sunglasses on and like you said, she's pouring
Sugar on
jelly,
top of her
pouring
jelly.
sugar on, and she's just behaving like a kid. And the way that her performance moves between when she's in this world, she knows she has to behave this way or she has to imitate this type of behavior in this way. And then when she's being herself, she's really just a little kid. So it's so...
Not a little kid, but a girl, a young girl.
12 years old. Like, should
I
not...
wouldn't call her a little kid. Like, I would say a young girl. Yeah.
It's a very upsetting
Of
performance
course it
to
is.
watch. But I think it's one of the few moments where Travis's impulse is correct. The scene where he's trying to like talk some sense into her, where he's basically saying to her, she's like, oh, you're so square. And he's like, I'm square. You're the one who's hanging out with these lowlifes and these degenerates. I'm the one that's square. Like, you got to get your head on straight. And then he's saying, like, if you're afraid to run or if you need money, like, I'll give you my money. I got nothing better to spend my money on. It's one of the few times in the movie where he's got the right impulse to try and be helpful to someone and do the right thing. Of course, what ends up happening is a complete deviation from that. But the impulse to like try to help her and try to at least talk some sense in her is the right impulse. It's a really, really good scene. And I feel like the older I get, the more hard it is to watch the scenes with her in the movie.
I mean, I was on Wikipedia last night looking into it because that's how I am. And Harvey Keitel is actually 3 years older than Martin Scorsese.
Mhm.
And I'm like, because I was just curious what the age difference was between him and her. And I'm like, yeah, so he was legitimately 23 years older than her. When he's playing the sport character, he's definitely his own brand of character, that it's definitely this dark humor.
But also very easy to hate, because the minute he starts, because he's being very charismatic.
But you kind of love to hate him too.
I know, but he's being very charismatic with De Niro. When De Niro first approaches and he immediately assumes
He's a police officer.
that he's a cop,
Yeah.
and the way he's treating him and what he's saying to him, he's like, hey man, it's already entrapment. You know,
He's like, don't give me the money. He's like, you gotta f me and I'll give her the
he
money.
plays it in a way that is, again, very charismatic and easy to watch. But the minute he starts talking about Iris, at first he's talking and he's kind of funny, and then immediately you're like, I hate this guy.
The second scene he comes in too, that Travis Bickle comes over, and then
He doesn't recognize him.
well, he's got the mohawk at this point, and he's got like a glow necklace on or something.
Yeah.
Like, what the f is happening with him?
One thing that's interesting to note, though, and this is I've seen the movie again a million times, and it's just something that's very strange, is that the whole movie is told through Travis's point of view, right? So every single scene in the movie has Travis in it because it's his point of view.
Yeah.
There's only one scene in this movie that doesn't have Travis in it, and it's the scene
Where he's
it's
dancing
him.
with her.
Yeah, when they're playing the record, and it's just strange that scene exists outside of the point of
I'm
view.
sure
of
for the
Travis
purpose
Bickle's
of
character.
helping flesh out the Iris character a little bit more, and the dynamic of why she
she's
trusts
saying-
him, why she trusts him. You know, he says all these things, he goes, but no rough stuff. Like, there's still some element of him that's protective of her, which makes it even more disturbing. Not only is he 23 years older than her, he's pimping her out, like, and trying to act like he's in love with her. Like, this sick head game that is. I think that's part of why. That's probably the only scene in the movie that is a scene that doesn't happen, because it's that necessary to show that.
And to be fair, the way that it does frame that scene up is that it shows it's like Travis is parked outside of the hotel or wherever wherever the building that they're in, and it's like he's watching the building, and then it cuts inside. So at least it puts him within proximity.
Like, you can almost assume he's probably watching.
But it is a very clear structural break in the movie where every single scene is Travis's point of view, and then this one scene where we're like, he's completely removed from it. It's just the two of them. So just worth noting. It's something that every time I watch the movie, when we get to that scene, I'm always like, this always feels a little weird. It feels a little strange that this is what they're doing. Obviously, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the "Be Talking to Me" scene, which has been talked about ad nauseum. It's one of those things where in the script, it just says Travis talks to himself in the mirror. And then, of course, Scorsese is shooting all this stuff with De Niro doing improvisation. You can hear like sirens and helicopters and shit outside, because it's clearly just an unscripted moment, and everyone responds to it, and it's great and it's awesome, and I love that it's in the movie. I love more the way that it's used, where Travis is doing this manifesto and then making a mistake and then having to restart from the beginning. It's
Right.
so
It's
so
funny. It is
telling
funny.
of that character.
That
of, like,
scene is, I think it's supposed to be a little bit
this
funny.
is how
like, hold on, let me get
clumsy
this
he
right.
is. Yeah, he's not, you know what I mean? He's not this
Listen, you fuckers,
hero
you screwheads,
savior.
you.
Listen, you fuckers, you screwheads. Here is a man who would not take it anymore, who would not let. Listen, you fuckers, you screwheads.
But greatest scene in the movie is the ending of Taxi Driver. The last scene when Travis catches a glimpse of something in the rearview mirror with that dramatic music sting, and he quickly adjusts the mirror. It's just nightmare fuel. It's so terrifying to me. The implication that this is not resolved, that Travis, even now that he's lauded as a hero, still has more work to do. It's such a deeply unsettling way to end the movie, but it's the only way the movie can end. That he catches a glimpse of something in that rearview mirror, this demon that's behind him.
I kind of felt like in that whole last scene that he hallucinated the whole Sybil Shepherd being there in the car.
So that is,
And you don't think that was the case? You
that
think it
is,
was real,
that's another interpretation of the ending, and it's definitely worth discussing. That
I
people
feel like it's a wish fulfillment
people
thing.
believe.
Oh, look, I did this thing now. Aren't I so incredible now?
Right. There are people who believe that after the shootout, Travis has died in the shootout, and that everything that takes place after that shootout is essentially a dream or the afterlife. It does have that dreamlike quality, especially with Betsy getting into the car, being in the car, you know, and being kind of so receptive to him after she's clearly rejected him earlier in the movie. I think that's a totally valid interpretation of the movie, is to think that like everything after that could be a dream. I take it a little bit more literally, that he directed all of the rage that he was going to use against Palantine. And when that attempt to kill Palantine is botched, he just takes it and moves it over, redirects it to Sport to try and help Iris. That is a much more satisfying narrative for the public to say, like, oh, here's a guy who shaved his head and went and killed a bunch of pimps and prostituters and saved this 12-year-old girl who, you know, her poor family in Pennsylvania was looking for her. And they can pump him up and create that narrative in the media of this guy's a hero, so that if he does survive and go back to work as a cab driver, Betsy might be like, hey, maybe I had the wrong idea about you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he plays it great. The whole way the scene plays out is like, he's talking it down in the car. He's like, oh, they make bigger deal out of that stuff in the newspapers than it is, this, that, and the other thing. And then he drops her off and she's like, how much was the ride? And he doesn't like take the money from her. He plays it perfectly. It's almost like he could potentially have a path forward now. And then he just, it's not over. That this guy is going to explode again. Something bad is going to come from Travis Bickle again.
I feel like the more I think about it, even what you're saying, I really think that I think that he did die after the shootout. And this is like heaven or some sort of wish fulfillment. But that's the beauty of this movie, that you can have more than one take on how you think it ended.
That's what I mean. Good movies provide an answer. Great movies ask a question. Lows. Do you have any lows? Because I only have one and I really had to dig for it.
The Travis giving the 6-digit zip code thing, but I know why he did it.
Right.
I mean, I don't have like any real lows.
Okay. I have one low. So if I had to criticize anything, the execution scene, Scorsese had to desaturate that entire scene because he was trying to avoid an X rating. It wasn't even NC-17.
The blood.
The blood looks pink. On one hand, I think the scene's incredible. I mean, the actual scene itself is incredible. Like you said, it's like a Roger Corman.
I'll kill you. I know. The knife going to the hand.
And not only that,
a little bit.
that Travis does such a bad job that he actually really, like, he gets shot in the neck, like he's not protecting his blind side. Like,
it just shows you how unprepared he really is.
He shows up and he thinks he's going to be this like avenging angel, and he gets beamed the f up. Like, he's not in good shape. He gets shot in the neck, he gets stabbed in the arm, he gets shot in the arm. It's so brutal. When he shoots the guy right in front of Jodie Foster, and she's like, don't shoot him. She's more traumatized by that than probably she was than anything she did up until that point.
Right.
But then then after it's all done, when Travis takes the gun and he's trying to shoot himself and he realizes he's out of bullets, which is why that shot at the end when the cop comes in and he's doing, and of course the way that the camera is mounted above, like that, like ethereal look, where
it's showing the room.
It's kind of pulling back from the room and then outside to the media coverage and all the people that are out there. It's a perfect scene. The fact that Scorsese as an artist had to compromise, that he had to take his original vision of the scene and desaturate the whole thing
to avoid an X rating,
because he knew they were going to give him an X rating. Now, they can't restore the scene because whatever the chemical process was back then, you couldn't take the original negative and restore the saturation to it because it's gone. You could take it and, like, with AI, probably pump it up with saturation and make it look like it probably was intended to look, but it wouldn't be a true restoration. It would literally be like...
And there's something tragic about that.
So on one hand, part of me is like, I wish I could see it the way it was originally intended. On the other hand, it's kind of like the same difference with Jaws, where it's like, well, Spielberg had a broken shark, so he had to figure out a creative way to make the shark work without actually filming the shark, and it ends up being the best thing in the movie, that it's done in the POV. You look at that scene desaturated the way it is, and part of what makes that scene feel otherworldly is because of the color scheme, the grade, the way that, like, it's just kind of all brown and pink, and kind of the hues are really muted. So if I have to do a low, it's that I wish that he could have just done it the way he wanted to do it. But at the same time, I wouldn't change anything because that scene, even the way it's played out with that color grade, is very special.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
You still feel something happening there, even if the color isn't what it was originally intended.
So that is Taxi Driver. I love this movie.
Yeah.
If someone were to ask me, what's the greatest Martin Scorsese movie ever made, without thinking, I say Goodfellas immediately, without even thinking. Every time I watch this movie, I'm like, it might be Taxi Driver.
I personally probably like Goodfellas better, but
It just depends on the day you're having, I guess. What a way to start and what a way to follow this up, because next week we will be reviewing a low film in the form of M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening.
and you don't want to miss it
Oh boy, oh boy,
because
oh
we
boy,
certainly missed
oh
what was
boy.
happening in that movie. Ew.
I just gotta say, I mean, what? No. Oh boy. So hey, everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Movie HighLow. Please send your listener submissions,
Send your hate
highs
mail,
and
too.
lows to moviehighlow@gmail.com. Please spell it out.
And send your death threats somewhere else.
HIGHLOW. Yes. Do not shoot anybody in the streets. Do not buy a 44 Magnum off of Andy Samberg's dad. One of these days we're gonna get organized.
Ain't that a little honey? Ain't that a little honey?
Ain't that a little honey? We'll see you on the next episode of Movie HighLow.
See you later.
Loneliness has followed me my whole life. Everywhere. Bars and cars. Sidewalks, stores, everywhere. There's no escape. I'm God's lonely man.
Isn't that a little honey?